Hello everyone. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Harvest Moon series. Now, before we get into today's video, I definitely have to remind everyone that in today's video, we're talking about the Natsume Harvest Moon games, not the original Harvest Moon games, which are now called Story of Seasons. If you want to know more about that, I'll link a video in the description, which talks more about how Harvest Moon became Story of Seasons. But in today's video, we're going to be talking about the Harvest Moon games on the Nintendo Switch. In the description down below, I'm going to link my original reviews for each of these different games, but I will say that over time my opinions about some of them have changed, so I really wanted to make this video to talk about how I feel about the different Harvest Moon games right now. And today's video, I want to help you guys make the best decision about which of these games you want to get. So yeah, in today's video, we're going to be talking about the Harvest Moon series, which ones are worth getting, and which ones you should probably pass on. So the first Harvest Moon Switch game was Harvest Moon, A Light of Hope. Now, this game, it is 3D, and then there are 2D backgrounds. In the past, I definitely had said that I feel like Harvest Moon, A Light of Hope is overhated in the cozy gaming community. I do feel like even now that it's a very okay farming sim. And I feel like at the time that it was released, it was very decent. If you had played through Stardew Valley and Story of Seasons Friends of Mineral Town, I would definitely say that, at that time you could go ahead and play A Light of Hope because it's a very decent farming sim and, at least it's a little bit different. But now, in today's day and age, there's like 50 gabillion farming sims on the Nintendo Switch. So it's really hard for me to recommend Harvest Moon, A Light of Hope in almost any capacity because it does have a few things that drag it down, such as the hybrid crops and some of the quests needing very specific things that honestly gets really, really annoying. And then the graphics aren't the greatest, and the sound isn't the greatest. And yeah, it's just a very okay game. Like if you really want a farming game and you can get it for $10 or cheaper, then I would say you could definitely go for it. I would say you probably could get 20 to 30 hours of fun with this game if you want to play a farming sim. But yeah, not so great graphics, not so great sound, just an okay storyline and only like somewhat fun gameplay. I would say that there are much better options out there. So while it's not the worst, it's definitely not the best either. One thing that I will say about Harvest Moon: A Light of Hope is that it pretty much plays it safe. As we go through these different games, I think it's going to be very clear that the Harvest Moon series, I think it kind of struggled to find its own identity as the series was going along. And I feel like Harvest Moon: A Light of Hope was the last game that they made that was really like playing it safe, where it didn't really have its own identity. So yeah, it's an okay farming sim, but Harvest Moon: A Light of Hope, it didn't really feel like it stood out from the crowd. It just kind of felt like another farming sim. However, that definitely changed with Harvest Moon: One World. The second Harvest Moon game to be released on the Nintendo Switch was Harvest Moon: One World. Harvest Moon: One World, this game originally came out in 2021. Now, this game is very different from all of the previous Harvest Moon games, and actually this game, it was kind of a pioneer in terms of certain things. This game, it took some really big risks, and did those risks pay off? Well, yes and no. I was pretty active in the fan community when Harvest Moon: One World came out, and I know a lot of people, they didn't really like the game, and they didn't really like the direction that Natsume was taking the series. But me and definitely some other fans, we definitely did see that Harvest Moon: One World, yeah, it didn't play it safe like A Light of Hope did, but at least it was trying to find its own identity. In this game, it actually has a lot of very unique features. For me, Harvest Moon: One World, it actually has some decent character designs for the marriage candidates. It's a fully 3D world, and it looks a lot better than A Light of Hope. And the gameplay is actually really unique. In this game, you're going to slowly explore this world, and as you explore the world, you're actually going to find seeds in the wild. You don't have to go to the store to buy them. You can actually find them in the wild. So you'll be running around, you'll find a sprite, and then the sprite is going to give you some seeds. Then, of course, the rest of the game is kind of as you would expect. You plant the seeds on your farm, you do the farming, you slowly go through a storyline, and then you can do whatever you want after you finish the storyline. Now, for me, would I recommend playing this game right now? It's funny because if you had asked me at the time, would I recommend A Light of Hope or Harvest Moon One World, I probably would have said Harvest Moon A Light of Hope because it's a little bit more of a safe bet. The gameplay is very standard, and I think it's kind of like non-offensive. But now, for me, A Light of Hope, it kind of plays it too safe, in my opinion. So there's not really that much of a reason to even try Harvest Moon A Light of Hope. Whereas with Harvest Moon One World, like I think it's a very interesting game. Like, yeah, it doesn't really do everything very well, and there are some things that are kind of annoying about it. But at the end of the day, it's a very unique idea. And for me, it's kind of interesting to see how they took a new idea and then, they tried to run with it. And I definitely say tried because, yeah, this game definitely does have a few stumbles along the way. And also, one last disclaimer, I will say that when I bought Harvest Moon One World and I started playing it, I was pretty disappointed the first time I tried to get into it. I wasn't really able to get into it because it's so different and it's a little bit slow in the beginning. But then when I set the game down and then I took some time and then I went back to it, I actually found that there are some really unique aspects of the game. And it makes it so that even now, I definitely wouldn't say you definitely shouldn't buy Harvest Moon One World. I would say if you can get this game on a sale, then it probably is kind of a fun game to at least check out and see how it does the different things. So yeah, between Harvest Moon One World and A Light of Hope, I slightly would recommend One World over Light of Hope, only because at least it's trying to do new things, and it's really interesting to see how they try to make this game. Moving right along, we're on to the third Harvest Moon game on the Nintendo Switch, and that is Harvest Moon: The Winds of Anthos. Now, Harvest Moon: The Winds of Anthos, it kind of takes Harvest Moon One World, the good parts of Harvest Moon One World, and it really, really improves upon them. When I played Harvest Moon Winds of Anthos for the first time, I was actually shocked because, Harvest Moon: A Light of Hope, it played it safe, but it wasn't really anything special. Harvest Moon One World, it tried new things, but it didn't really succeed at them. So my expectations were quite low. But for me, Harvest Moon: The Winds of Anthos, it was not like the last two where I was kind of just like, from the beginning. Harvest Moon: The Winds of Anthos, very quickly for me, it was like, wow, this game is actually really cool. The graphics, the sound, the gameplay, just everything feels so much smoother and it's just so much better. And it's funny because it's even better now than it was at release because the game has actually been updated several times and it has more features. You can now play in a cozy mode where the game is much more nice to beginning players. You don't have to worry about like fatigue and you don't have to worry about time so much. It's really nice that they didn't just release Harvest Moon: The Winds of Anthos and then, not release any updates. They actually updated it over time to make it better and better. In this game, it's also you're going to be going along with a storyline and you're trying to restore the world back to its former glory. And to do that, you're going to go to a bunch of different villages. Of course, you're going to have a farm, you're going to grow crops, and you're going to raise animals. And you can also date any of the marriage candidates. Harvest Moon: The Winds of Anthos, it also is the first game in the Harvest Moon Natsume games to have same gender marriage. So if you go back and play Light of Hope or One World, you're going to be gender locked into certain different marriage candidates depending on if you choose the male character or the female character. But in the Winds of Anthos, you can marry anybody regardless of your gender. So yeah, if you guys want to know more about Harvest Moon: The Winds of Anthos, you can see my full review down in the comments down below. So yeah, talking about these three games, comparing these three games with each other, how would I rank them? Of course, the Winds of Anthos, it really blows the other two completely out of the water. Definitely get Harvest Moon: The Winds of Anthos first of these three titles. And if you absolutely loved it, it could be interesting to go back and play Harvest Moon One World just to see, like, wow, they really improved upon everything in the Winds of Anthos. And then, yeah, as I said, Harvest Moon: A Light of Hope, it's a decent game, but yeah, it doesn't really stand out in any way. The next game that was released for the Nintendo Switch from the Harvest Moon series was the Harvest Moon Cozy Game Bundle. Now, these two games, they are actually predecessors to A Light of Hope. And for me, it's funny because with these three games, you can really see the progression. These two games, they were released on the Nintendo 3DS, and these are just slightly enhanced ports of those games. And you do get all the DLC for both of these titles. Now, these two games, they are also unique. These games, you can do this thing where you can like terraform almost from the very beginning. So your farm area is almost like a Minecraft or like a Dragon Quest Builders world where you can control the different levels. And yeah, you can definitely see the growing pains in Harvest Moon: The Lost Valley. In this game, there is no town. All it is your farm and then your house. And then different villagers, they'll kind of walk around outside your house and they'll kind of walk around your farm. And yeah, this sounds really weird, and it is really, really weird. And as I first started playing the game, I was like, okay, maybe it's going to come together and it's going to get to be very fun. But yeah, it didn't really happen. The way the villagers just come and go based on their own schedules, the way that everything is just in such a small, tiny little area. This cozy bundle, I definitely would say that Harvest Moon: The Lost Valley is going to be at the very bottom because everything that's unique about it, it's done better in Skytree Village. And so there's really almost absolutely no reason to play Harvest Moon: The Lost Valley. Really, the only reason I can think of is because there's a few unique marriage candidates in this game. So if you think one of the character designs of one of the marriage candidates is really, really cool, then I guess you could try The Lost Valley. Other than that, I would say of all these Harvest Moon games, this is the one to avoid. But this cozy bundle, it includes 2 games. The other game is called Skytree Village. Now, Harvest Moon, Skytree Village, this game takes everything from the Lost Valley and makes it a bit better. There's actually a town, and the villagers, they actually have homes that they live in. And yeah, there's actually a more coherent storyline, and the game, it like takes you through the different aspects of the game pretty well. I was actually really surprised at how good the pacing was. Now, that being said, Skytree Village, it still also is a port of a 3DS game, so it is a little bit dated in today's day and age. Now, for me personally, I probably would put Skytree Village dead in the middle, above Light of Hope, and of course, The Lost Valley. But it's not quite as unique as One World, and it doesn't actually come together like The Winds of Anthos does. So yeah, for me, Skytree Village, I put it number 3, but honestly, for me, it's kind of neck and neck with Harvest Moon: One World. Harvest Moon: One World is a little bit more of a mess, but at least it's a little bit more ambitious, so I kind of like that about it. But yeah, if we're talking about just like how good the game is, period, then I probably would put Skytree Village a little bit above One World. But yeah, Skytree Village, it's a decent game. So if you want to play a game that's a little bit more together, then maybe Skytree Village could be your number 2. Now, the newest Harvest Moon game, it was just released on October 30th, and this game is Harvest Moon: Home Sweet Home. Now, Harvest Moon: Home Sweet Home, it released last year. It was released on both Android and iPhone. Harvest Moon: Home Sweet Home, it has the marriage candidates of previous Harvest Moon games in it, and it kind of takes the system of the Winds of Anthos and simplifies it a little bit. And you're just going to be in this one town. You're not actually going to be going around a huge world. Now, for me, as I've said, I was a really huge fan of the Winds of Anthos. So playing the Winds of Anthos Lite should also be pretty good, right? I have a whole review of Harvest Moon: Home Sweet Home down in the comments down below. But for me, Harvest Moon: Home Sweet Home being ported to the Nintendo Switch with a few extra features, I do want to talk about that a little bit. On mobile, this game is only $18, but on the Nintendo Switch, it's $40. And the only additions are 2 new marriage candidates and a few other little bonuses, like you can ride a hovercraft. So yeah, a few more scenes, a few more characters, and a few more items that you can get. So for Harvest Moon: Home Sweet Home, I do want to talk about should you upgrade if you have it on mobile. If you've already played this game on mobile, I definitely would say that there's not really any reason to get it again on the Switch unless you really, really like one of the 2 marriage candidates that were added. Maybe then I could say, okay, yeah, maybe you can go ahead and get the game. But yeah, for me, Harvest Moon: Home Sweet Home, it plays it a little bit too safe. In my opinion, the Harvest Moon games, they work the best when they're trying to do new things and they're trying to stand out from the crowd. So for me, that's why I have Harvest Moon: The Winds of Anthos, Harvest Moon: Skytree Village, and even Harvest Moon: One World. I think these 3 games, they all do something kind of unique to stand out. Even if you've played a whole bunch of other farming sims, you'll definitely find new things in those 3 games. However, Harvest Moon: Home Sweet Home, it kind of takes the unique aspects of Harvest Moon: The Winds of Anthos and takes them away, and it just kind of boils it back down to a more base farming sim. And it's decent, but for me, I have the same problem with Home Sweet Home that I do with A Light of Hope, in that in today's day and age, you have to do more than just make a decent farming sim if you want to keep people's attention. So yeah, for me personally, it's really hard for me to recommend Harvest Moon Home Sweet Home to you because yeah, there's not really anything super special about it. It doesn't do anything like crazy and new that would really suck you in, and there's not really anything unique about it gameplay wise. Whereas, at least with Skytree Village, One World, and the Winds of Anthos, there are definitely things in those games that are unique. There's gameplay in those games that you can't get anywhere else. But Harvest Moon Home Sweet Home, it's beautiful. The music is fine, and the storyline's fine, and everything about it is just really fine. So I think for me, my recommendation for Harvest Moon Home Sweet Home would be wait until you get it on sale. But yeah, if you really like all of the other Harvest Moon games, I do think Harvest Moon Home Sweet Home is probably one of the better ones. It's miles better than The Lost Valley, and it's better than A Light of Hope. So yeah, for me, it's really hard to put it in a higher tier because it doesn't really do anything special. Whereas, as I've said on this channel in many other videos, that I like it when games do new things, I like it when they stand out from the crowd. We already have 50 gabillion farming sims these days, and a lot of them are constantly coming up with updates, constantly improving, and really pushing the boundary. But Harvest Moon Home Sweet Home, it just plays it safe. So for me personally, I wouldn't really recommend Harvest Moon Home Sweet Home above a bunch of other farming sims. So yeah, if you have played the Harvest Moon series, please let me know what is your ranking of the games. Is it the same as mine, or is it different? In today's video, I definitely gave huge points for the games that tried to stand out, and I took some points away if the games played it too safe, because as I said, there's so many farming sims, so is there really a point in playing even a half-decent farming sim if it doesn't do anything new? For me, maybe in the past, I would have said I prefer to play a game that's decent than a game that tries and fails. But now I kind of have the opposite opinion because, yeah, nobody has time to play a game that just does the same thing we've done 10 gabillion times before. I definitely would rather try to play a game that has its stumbles, but at least it's trying something different. But yeah, that is just my opinion. So of all the games on my list, I think the only one that I would recommend trying to get ASAP is still Harvest Moon, The Winds of Anthos. All the other titles, if you can get them on sale for $20 or less, I definitely think that all of them are worth a look. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to hit that like button, and I'll see you guys next time.